Welcome everyone to the first Friday Hangout MENA Arts UK Takeover. My name is Becky. I'm the Events and Communications Manager at the Arabic Centre. In case you don't know who we are, we're a charity that works to further understanding of the Arab world in the UK. And we do that through lots of different ways. But if you don't know, I invite you to head to our website. I'm not going to go into it all now. But I'm joined by my colleagues Amani and Reem and maybe Barty as well, but the whole team's here. And yeah, we're really excited to be hanging out with you all today. Just to quickly throw back to last year. So we created the Friday Hangouts literally days after the UK went into lockdown in March, because we wanted a bit of normality and we wanted to just like create a space where people could come together to discuss arts and culture and connect really. And we feel that like that is as important now as it was then, still in lockdown, unbelievably. But yeah, so when Laura from MENA Arts UK got in contact with us, we've known Laura for ages, but when she got in contact with us to suggest bringing back the Hangouts in partnership, we were super excited and we just were like, yes, basically. I'm going to hand over to Laura in a minute, but just quickly, to give you an idea of the format, if you could keep your microphones on mute for the duration, that would be amazing, just because I appreciate that a lot of people might be eating their lunch and stuff, so avoid any kind of noises and things. But so it's going to be about a 30-minute chat between Orion and Sally, and then but please send like questions and comments like as you have them into the chat bar, and we'll come back to them about halfway through. If you would like to, because we have limited time and there's only an hour, we're kind of going to do a little bit of an experiment with this. But if you would particularly like to ask the question yourself, like verbally, please make a little note when you send it into the public chat. And then Laura will kind of invite you to ask your question if there's time. But if you don't want to, that's also fine as well. And Laura will be asking. But yeah, I'll hand over to Laura now, and she's going to tell you a little bit about MENA Arts UK and get things started.
Hello, hi everyone. It is so amazing to see so many people here, and I've been watching people's comments in the chats. We've got people from Cairo and Germany and Cambridge and Exeter, and this is just brilliant. So thank you so much all for coming. So I'm Laura Hannah, and I'm on the steering group for MENA Arts UK. So a little bit about us. Some of you I know on this call already know who we are. We formed last year for creatives in the live and recorded arts to do several things: to provide a support network, to advocate for better representation, and to celebrate and commission work from MENA Plus artists. So with this takeover, I loved the Hangouts last year, as Becky knows. So I was so excited for us to do something like this and have a little takeover. So for this particular 4-part series that we've got, we wanted to platform some MENA Plus professionals in the live and recorded arts with this series. And they each guest that we have is going to be chatting to one of the members of our steering panel. So today we have Sally El Hosaini. Thank you so much, Sally, for being here. I'll just give you a little introduction. Sally is a Welsh-Egyptian film director and screenwriter whose acclaimed debut feature, My Brother the Devil, picked up major prizes at Sundance, Berlin, and London film festivals. And she sits on BAFTA's film committee and is currently in pre-production for her second feature, The Swimmers. And Sally is chatting to our very own Arian Nik, who is running the show today. Arian is a British-Iranian actor born and raised in Leeds, and he is also part of our steering group at MENA Arts UK. So I will hand over to you, Arian. Off you go.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us. It's so nice to see so many faces. I've not seen this many faces in a really long time. Hi, Sally.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Where are we chatting from? Whereabouts are you based right now?
London. Yeah, Walthamstow.
Okay, sweet. I'm up in North London as well. I got back a couple of days ago, and it's weird kind of getting back to the capital and seeing nothing has changed. We're still sort of in this weird old time.
Yeah.
Have you found it?
Well, busy recently because I'm in pre-production on a film, and the crazy part is not being able to be in the room with the rest of the team. So doing everything on Zoom and the telephone and from home. But there's going to be a point now where it's just, you miss the human contact, especially making a film. And, you know, we'll have to start, you know, seeing things for real, going to locations and that kind of stuff.
Of course. And that's pre-production for Swimmers, that's right.
Yeah.
And did you start pre-production before we kind of entered this?
Yeah, we actually, we were in pre-production when we had to lock down. So we actually got towards the end of pre-production. So we did it once, but now everything's changed really. So yeah, it's a different world a year later.
So strange. Yeah, it really is. But what a gift to kind of have something to keep you excited and creative and active, I suppose. Like, I know that a lot of people in the industry have found it really challenging over the past couple months, year and a half almost.
But you know what, it's also been a creative time, because, you know, when things shut down, I wasn't sure if Swimmers, you know, really would come back together again or not. You know, there was a lot of uncertainty. So for me, it was like parking what I'd spent a year and a half, 2 years working on, and, you know, coming up with new stuff, new ideas, writing, and, you know, having the space and the time to do that is a gift as well, I think, because sometimes in the hustle of daily life, you know, you don't have the space to actually think about what you're doing and design what you're doing. You kind of are a bit more reacting to things.
Of course, it's that never-ending roller coaster, especially if you're in London. It's non-stop. You need to take a pause, and I think we've been on pause for a while now. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to hit play again.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about Swimmers and where the idea came from, how you came about starting it? Just, yeah.
Yeah, so it was sent to me as a script that had already been written by Jack Thorne, and when they first sent it to my agent, who then told me about it. At the time, I was working on a different project that I'd been developing and writing for many years since My Brother the Devil, so 5 or 6 years, trying to get that off the ground. So when they first mentioned there was this project, I had been really tunnel vision on my own stuff. And so for the last like year and a half to 2 years, I'd been saying no to anything else that came, because not just, you know, by a rule, but just that I would compare it to my baby that I've been working on and go, would I want to leave this and put it on pause and go and do this for a few years? And the answer was always no. So when, you know, I was contacted about this, all I was told was, oh, it's the story of 2 sisters who are Syrian refugees. And that's all I was told, not their names or anything. So I did pick it up thinking, and it was Working Title who were making it, I did pick it up thinking, this is going to be kind of reactive to the headlines, and it's going to be like a victimized portrayal of young women maybe. And I had my own prejudices picking up the script. And so I even said to my agent, he said, look, you should read it, and just, you know, even if you're going to say no, just read it to give a reason why you're saying no. So I was convinced I was going to not be doing this film. And then I picked up the script and read it, and it sounds so cliche, but I just read it, got to the end, and I just knew that I had to do it. So I kind of shot myself in, you know, getting to the end and thinking, this is an amazing story. It needs to be made. It needs to be on screen. And more than that, I imagined if I saw it, if I went to the cinema and sat in the audience and watched it, I'd just be like kicking myself that I didn't like put the things that already I had seen in my head that could be in this movie.
Sure.
And I was like, and I don't want someone to do it badly. I want it to be like real and authentic and about young women, strong young women, and yeah, things I'm really passionate about. And so I just thought, you know what, I have to put my baby on hold and make this my new baby.
Wow. So, and that project that you kind of put on pause and put on ice is still on ice while you've been kind of working on Swimmers?
Yeah. It's kind of the juggle. You can only make one film at a time. Well, certainly the way I work. And it takes so much of you. You have to be so passionate and ready to like get up every day and fight for the project, that it's like you have to be ready to live with it for years. I mean, My Brother the Devil took, you know, 6 or 7 years to get going. This other one that I was working on, that was 6 years until I decided to put it on pause for Swimmers. And now Swimmers has been 2 years, 2.5, just over 2 years. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And that period of time between My Brother the Devil and sort of swimmers now that you've taken on, has that time in between sort of been spent for you to, I mean, rest is really important. Like, we forget how much it takes out of us when you're sort of creating a film, when you're creating a piece of work. Like, it's important to sort of recharge and be able to give the next project as much as you want. I always find it really funny. Like, when I went to drama school, everyone was like, when you're between jobs, you're like, you're a resting actor, and people always mock it because they'd be like, that just means you're unemployed. But actually, it's like, no, you do actually need to find some time between projects. And what was, so obviously you're working on your baby, the other I love that we're calling it your baby.
The journey, yeah, it's called Giants.
Okay, see.
And just quickly, because I didn't answer your last question, Swimmers is the story of Yusra and Sarah Mardini, if in case anyone knows who they are, who because they're, you know, out there. So yeah, which I didn't know when I picked up the script. But yeah, that period in between is really interesting because, you know, My Brother the Devil did better than like was expected, I guess, for the type of movie it was. And so after that, there were a lot of people contacting me with projects and things that, you know, will you come and do this and that? And the truth is that I didn't find a lot of them very good, or things that like grabbed me. And in the beginning, I think I spread myself too thin because I had tons of ideas for what the next one would be. So I had like 4 or 5 films. And it was something I learned about doing one thing properly at a time and how to do that. But it took me a little while to get there because I was kind of doing this and doing that. And suddenly all these opportunities were opening up and I was trying to grab them all. But ultimately, the lesson for me in that interim period was about letting the ones drop away that actually weren't the one. And it becomes quite obvious to you as you kind of try to pursue them all.
You've got to be brave to do that though, Sally. Like, you've got to be really brave and have real artistic integrity to be able to kind of go, nah, this one doesn't sort of float my boat or kind of sing to me, so I'm gonna put that one aside and just focus on me. Like, that's brave. And obviously it's paid off.
But it's also about knowing yourself, because I'm sure there's other filmmakers who can do that juggle. But you know, for me, certainly not. So you know, I learned that. Yeah, and I think that I didn't think after My Brother the Devil it would be just as hard to get the second one made, but it was. And so I guess it's just the way of the world. And maybe I didn't make it easy as well because I reinvented the wheel in what I did with my brother in terms of like going into this very intensive research phase of living the film and moving to another country and all that kind of stuff. Because it's based on a true story from the 70s that was based around the Bay Area in the States. And so I ended up going out there a lot and spending a lot of time out there.
Well, I want to come on to that before. I want to talk a little bit more about Swimmers, because obviously you said Jack Thorne kind of came to your agent with the script, and that's quite a later on in sort of a creative process of conceiving a film and an idea for you to sort of receive a script, as opposed to, I suppose, planting the seeds and watering it yourself and kind of growing it. What's it been like to collaborate with Jack Thorne, just collaborating with someone else on a piece of work like this?
Amazing. I mean, I love Jack, and you know, the script, although it came to me as a script, you know, it still was in a development phase, and so I'm actually a co-writer on it now. So what's happened is that I kind of came in and had so many thoughts and ideas, and Jack's a very generous creative, so he's just like, go for it. So I'm now co-writing it with him basically, and have been for the last 2 years, and so we're doing it together. And I think, you know, it was where Jack, you know, didn't have a lived experience that maybe I had had growing up in Cairo and stuff, and that I could maybe bring to it, that, you know, he just said, yeah, go ahead. And
how
so
amazing. What a gift to be able to be collaborating so openly.
So now I really do feel it's my film, you know, it's and the strange thing is, like, in that interim period as well, I did direct some TV. So I directed Babylon, and that was the first time I directed something I hadn't written. And before I did it, I was like, okay, this is a really interesting experience to just see what it's like to kind of dip my toe into that world. And I loved it. It felt honestly like someone is allowing me to do the fun bits without the headache. You know,
Wow.
you can just show up, the scripts are there, you get to do all the fun stuff on set with the actors, and then you get to do all the fun stuff in the edit, and all the headache of developing and finding the story and writing on your own.
Financing, pulling your hair out.
Yeah, getting it all
of that.
up and running. It's like, wow, this is really a job. People get to just come in and direct.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take
Yeah.
that.
So
Okay,
yeah,
well,
no, so
obviously
I
you
loved
had to
it.
kind of
Mm.
amazing, and you've had to go through that process for My Brother the Devil. Like, it really was. You gave it everything of your experience, and you sort of gave it all of your time. Can you talk about, like, a little bit, I suppose, what attracted you to telling that story? Because both Swimmers and My Brother the Devil are about siblings, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sort of interested in kind of what it is about, whether there is sort of like a common thread between those two films, or what it was about My Brother the Devil that was kind of like, this is a story I want to be my first film, and I want to give it all of. And like you said, you relocated, you gave so much of your time and life to it, and the film is just, it's beautiful. The work is there. Do you know what I mean? So I'm really intrigued to know what that journey was.
Yeah, no, so I've been working in the industry for quite a long time, before My Brother the Devil, various jobs, because I didn't go to film school, and so my experience of the industry was very much like trying to hustle to get my first job, and then work my way around to fiction, basically, to films, because I always knew I wanted to, well, I didn't know I wanted to write, I knew I wanted to direct, and I would say that I write to direct rather than, I enjoyed writing, but I never like had in my mind that I wanted to write specifically. It was always, writing was the means to directing, and it was free and you could do it on your own and no one could tell you not to. So it's kind of like directing on your own on a piece of paper. So in that sense, you know, it was, I had worked many jobs in the industry, and I reached a point where I think it was a confidence thing. I probably could have started like making my own work earlier, but I always felt, because I hadn't gone to film school, that I had so much to learn. And so I had to kind of work for all these people and learn everything. So I had been kind of studying and learning while I was working, and talking to people and seeing it. And then I reached like a tipping point where, you know, I was doing more than just my job description in certain jobs, and seeing the fruits of my labor, like things I'd written be successful, and realizing that, wait a minute, there were people who knew less than me that were doing the thing I wanted to do. And then I think just the pain of not getting on and making that film was greater than the pain of doing it. So I was working at the BBC, and then I just like left the BBC, and they offered me quite a good job like to go on to after my contract ended on the thing I was on. And I just thought, no, if I really want to do this, I just have to say no to that and go back to the beginning and make shorts, even though I've been working for like however long it was, nearly 10 years.
Yeah, someone's saying imposter syndrome in the chat, and I think a lot of us are quite familiar with that sensation of being in a space, especially in this country and kind of the way things are, being in those spaces and in those rooms and on those sets, and kind of feeling like, like, do I know enough? Have I read enough books? Do you know what I mean? I've got enough experience. It's mad.
Yeah, so it's true. So it is about confidence. And so then when I stopped and started to make some shorts, I did some like tiny shorts, and then I wrote like some ambitious shorts that were really like mini films. They were like half an hour, and they were really like fleshed out, and I did 3 of them, and I submitted them to every short scheme to get funding, and they all got rejected. And so then I was just like, oh gosh, okay, this is really hard. And that was when I decided to start working on My Brother the Devil, because I was like, if I have put all this energy into doing these 3 shorts and I'm still not getting the money to do these, I'm wasting my time, because this is just supposed to be the step to get to the feature.
It's the trampoline, right?
Yeah, let me just do the feature already. So that was when I sat down and wrote My Brother the Devil.
Amazing. And the process of that, because you said that you grew up in Egypt, in Cairo, is that right?
So I was very strategic, about the subject matter. So I was living in Hackney, had been living in Hackney for a while, and I was living on a council estate. So that's why I set my film in that world. Because when I started writing that script, I genuinely thought I was going to film it in my flat, and in like my neighbors' houses, and because I was like, okay, forget the shorts, I'm going to write this film in a world that I have access to. So that's why I set the film. I mean, we filmed it 10 minutes from where I lived at the time, but you know, I genuinely, that was why that was the world. And then I took themes and things that I was very passionate about and brought them into that world, and made the boy's Egyptian. And so it was like a mix of me, of things I brought to it. But it came from a very practical place because I was frustrated with not making the film. I was like, okay, what do I actually have access to here that I can actually just make this as a low budget feature? And then the more I wrote and worked on it, the more my ambition for the project grew. And the more I didn't want to settle and kept pushing to make it better and better.
That's so interesting because I mean, I'm sure there are people watching this that have seen it, and when I watched it, it felt like it wasn't about the practicalities. Like it felt like a very personal film, and it felt, yeah, just really close to you. The storytelling felt really close.
Like the story and the characters are, but it was just like the practicality of the world, you know, like because, yeah, I guess what we do is the practical meeting the creative, you know, and you have to have like that realism of, you know, what you have access to and the ability to pull off, I guess.
So you were saying that obviously the shorts that was kind of you were using that as a sort of springboard to make the feature, and then you were like, no, let's scrap that. I need to rethink this strategy, and you went straight for the feature. How did it work in terms of getting production companies to take you seriously, and because you were saying confidence is really important, like how you value yourself and how you sell yourself to other people, but it's no easy
really
feat kind of getting that backing.
It's tricky with the first film because it's all execution dependent, and you always hear that phrase from the industry. Well, it's execution dependent. Well, everything is, but anyway, I hate that phrase.
What does that mean when they say that?
Nothing. It's a way to say no. It's a way to say no because you know you're not in the club or something. I don't know. So right, it's always like execution dependent is what you hear, and you have this like chicken and egg situation where it's like, because you don't have, you know, nobody's seen something to say that you can do it, and it's, you know, it's like the getting an agent thing. A lot of people think, oh, you have to get an agent straight away, and I have to get an agent to help make the film, but I can't get an agent until I've made the film. So there's all those kinds of circles you get trapped in when you're trying to do your first thing, and I think you've just got to kind of step outside that and forget what you're being told the rules of the industry are. So, and that's what worked for me. So with My Brother the Devil, it was a 6-year journey from me sitting down and starting to write it. And wow. I was very lucky early on to get into the Sundance Middle East labs, which many of you should find out about if they still exist. They were run through the Royal Film Commission of Jordan, and they were kind of a collaboration between Sundance and the RFC. And you could submit like a feature script and you could go to Jordan. I got selected to go on that, and you spent a week in Jordan, and they brought advisors from Sundance to give you advice on your script. And that's how I got to know the Sundance people, which was wow. support creatively. And that's really the only concrete support I got in those years of development was from Sundance. I didn't get anything from the UK. So it was kind of tricky, and Sundance isn't something that gives you money. So that's a whole other thing. So you just have to develop the producer chip in your brain and start producing the film yourself. And I hate that side of the work, but I had to just do it. So like going to Cannes, not really knowing what I was doing, just to kind of meet people, because, you know, showing up there, you know, staying outside Cannes at a friend's house, renting a car and driving in every morning because it's cheaper, and like walking around my script, trying to meet people. And the first time I went, I met other people just like me with their scripts who wanted to do the same thing as me. And then the second time I went, that group had shrunk. And then the third year I went, it was like there were 2 of us. So it is he who lasts the longest. It always is. And it's, yeah, that's the only secret in it, is like just going, okay, I'm going to keep on going. Yeah. And so I managed to get like a sales agency in Paris to give me a minimum guarantee to sell the movie. That was like before a producer, before I had an agent. I had that piece of paper just from my own hustling. And then I was able to take that and then blanket attack the British film industry. And they say, oh, only give it to one producer at a time. Well, I just reached the point where I had decided if I don't make it this summer, then I'm like quitting. Like I'm like I had reached that point. And so I thought, I don't have the time. I'm just going to blanket attack every producer I can reach. So I did that. And I just ignored the advice of like, give it to one person, wait for months till they read it, till you can like manage to have a coffee with them, and then give it to the next person, and like all that kind of stuff. But I just blanket.
You're
did
like,
it
I don't have time.
Yeah. And it worked. So I managed to meet Gail Griffiths. She sadly passed away now, but she really loved the script. But she had just been diagnosed with cancer. So she said to me, and she was like a real producer. So, and she was the first person to genuinely love the script and to understand the film. And she said, I'd love to do this, but I'm about to start chemo and I don't think I have the energy to take this on right now. So I was just like, what? I finally meet someone who can do this. And she can't do it. And then I had met some other producers who were kind of young, up and coming producers, and they didn't have much experience. At the time I met them, they'd never made a short. They had since made one short, but that's all they had done. And so I was like, oh, I really like them and they get it. But actually, like this, like, do I really trust, like, that they've only done one short, that they know how to make like a feature? So then I had the brainwave to introduce Gail and them. So I got them around a table and I said, okay, Gail has the experience, but not the energy. You have the energy, but not the experience. Why don't you all do it together? And they said yes. And that's how the movie got made.
Sally, that's mad. Like, that is such an unconventional way, but so brilliant. And I suppose the level of instinct and confidence you've got to have to do that is, you can't teach that. You can't train that sort of thing. That's you've kind of got it, or you've got to sort of fine tune it. And I don't know about you, when I obviously having Iranian parents and telling them you want to be an actor was like, yeah, jog on, pal, like doctor or lawyer. And like that was a real challenging thing for me. And I'm wondering what your journey was into directing and how that was with the people you grew up with and sort of those communities. Because even when I look at my cousins and like half brothers, half sisters, you look at all them and they're all like in their massive houses and they're already on baby number 2 and the fence is really well painted. Do you know what I mean? And I'm out here in my flat share in London and I'm still loving what I'm doing, but I suppose not what the parents had wanted. And I'm intrigued because you have that instinct and you have that confidence in yourself. And it's taken me ages to rev myself up because my parents believed in me, but not as they didn't really want it for me, you know?
Yeah. No, look, the filmmaking thing for me came late. It wasn't like something I knew as a child, knew all my life. I took photographs when I was kind of 12, 13. I kind of inherited my dad's SLR camera and I took a lot of black and white photos. And that was like my passion growing up as a teenager. And I always liked writing like short stories and liked reading and writing and stories. And I wasn't exposed to a lot of films at all. It wasn't something that was in my consciousness at all. And then when I was in university, I was studying Arabic with Middle East politics. I was kind of wanting to do that for lots of reasons. But then when I was actually in that first year of doing my degree, memorizing Arabic grammar, I just knew it wasn't me and I didn't have a brain for it. And I was sitting there going, oh, this is so hard. What am I doing? Why did I sign up for this? And I remember having this moment late one night where I was like, why am I even studying this? I mean, I know it's interesting, but like all this Arabic grammar, I don't understand it. And then I thought I was happiest when I was taking photos. I'm happiest when I'm writing, and I'm happiest when I'm around people. So why can't I just find a job that is taking photos and like dealing with images and people and words? That's basically what I want. And then it was like a light bulb switched on and I just thought, well, what about filmmaking? And that was the first moment that it was literally like a light bulb moment. And I thought, well, filmmaking. And then I went and called my brother and said, I want to be a filmmaker. And he was like, what? What are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to drop out of university and be a filmmaker. And at the time I had a grant for university and my university didn't do a filmmaking course. And so then I was told like, no, you can't, because if you drop out of uni, we can't afford for you to go to like film school and you'll lose your grant and you have to finish your degree. So my brother was like, look, if you really want to be a filmmaker, study the greats, study the people that you would like to be like. And, if you still want to do it in 2 or 3 years when you finish your degree, then you'll know that that really is the path for you. And so I just began to kind of, in my free time at uni, watch movies. And that was when I really started to like begin to love cinema and to understand cinema and learn about it and immerse myself in it. And it really was that thing of like my family, and I didn't know anyone in the industry, literally zero. All my family are like mathematicians and scientific people. And my dad was an engineer. So so
Was
then,
that an offer for a cup of tea? You should have one if you want one.
I've got a cup of tea.
Okay, good.
So yeah, it was like my auntie maybe lived next door to a guy that might make documentaries, but she was too embarrassed for me to go and speak to him, because, you know, she cared what he thought. So that was literally it.
Wow. So I suppose that kind of passion for film and cinema got you through those couple of years, and then the rest of it, hustling.
Yeah, it was getting that first job in the industry wasn't easy. So I managed to find actually a guy in North Yorkshire that was running an apprenticeship scheme where he would take you on. It was a strange setup. He's also passed away now. He was like an old school theatre director who was kind of bitter about the industry down south and had moved to North Yorkshire to a pig farm. And he basically set up a little company to make like corporate videos. And he would take you on and as a production team basically. And he didn't believe in theory, it was 100% practical. So it was like I had to like don a blazer and go and meet people at a cake factory as a client, and find out about their training video they wanted us to make them. And so just like read the manual of the camera the night before and show up and pretend we knew what we were doing when we were interviewing them. And so that in a way was like my first taste. And in fact, the editor I work with now, who's like my main creative collaborator, he was also on that pig farm with that guy, and that's when I directed stuff and he edited it. That was when that first happened.
And that's still a working relationship now.
Yeah. And so he's doing
That's
soon as
amazing.
he did My Brother the Devil. So and yeah.
Fantastic.
So then we moved down to London, and I tried to get a job in the industry here, and I was rejected really for anything I tried to do. I remember going to a screening where Ken Loach did a Q&A and slipping him my CV. And he very, very sweetly, his company wrote back to me and said, thank you, your CV is on file, because they're generally good like that, but mostly you don't hear anything. I managed to get in through my Arabic knowledge, working on documentaries. So.
And then that kind of.
And then that was my first job in the
fiction.
industry, was working on documentaries that were mainly filming in the Middle East. And so I was kind of a researcher and self-shooting AP on those. And then I kind of learnt about filmmaking through documentaries. And then from there went into some script editing, worked at the BBC, did some development work, worked as a production coordinator on low budget feature films, because I knew that documentaries wasn't me. Certainly the way I was making them. And there was something about the formulaic nature of them. And I just, it was like a moral thing that I wasn't sure if because a lot of them were just, the subject matter was decided in a room in the UK by kind of executives in Channel 4, ITV or the BBC. This is the subject of it. Then you'd be brought on as the person who had some area knowledge to go and research. And when you got to these places on the ground, if you found something different and then filmed it, it sometimes didn't go down that well. And you were just like, okay, wait, are we showing the truth or are we fictionalizing? And documentaries, so it was just the whole process of how you build to an ad break, how you have a hook. I was like, you manipulating, it's like a big manipulation. And it's probably just the type of documentaries I was doing, but there was one job I started and it was like an investigative documentary, and there was a moral line in it where I was like, actually, I'm not prepared to go and do that and lie to people because it's investigative. And I think it just depends, knowing yourself, what you are prepared to do and not. So I had been trying desperately to get into fiction, and I found out that the first ever Yemeni feature film was being made. And so I managed to hustle to find the phone number of the director. And so I called him up and his wife answered the phone and she said, he's in Yemen making a film. She was in London. And I said, yeah, can you give me his mobile number? I really need to speak to him. And so then she gave me his mobile number. He's a friend now, but I actually called him and said, hi, my name's Sally. You don't know me, but I really think you should know me. And he teases me about that. And as part of my degree of Arabic, I had studied in Yemen. So I had a lot of Yemen knowledge and experience, and I traveled a lot in Yemen. So I basically said, look, I know all about Yemen. I've lived in Yemen. I was in Sana'a. I've traveled everywhere. Can I come and work on your film? And just by luck, his production coordinator had quit. So he's like, do you want to come into the production office? I was like, yes. So he's like, can you come next week? I'm like, yes. So that was my first job on a feature film. And then when I came back to the UK, I was able to have that on my CV and to say I worked on the first ever Yemeni feature film in the production office, and then work on in the production office in the UK on like low budget films.
Amazing. So hustle, I think, is what I got from that. Hustle.
I think like when I think of like all my friends who are doing this as well, like you do have to DIY, and you always feel like you're DIY.
You have to make your way and make your path, make your space at the table. We're going to go to some of the questions from people watching, and the first one is in relation to Swimmers and the script when you first sort of received it. And the question is, when you get those internal warning signs about how a white lens on a story might look, how do you deal with that in a creative and constructive way? Because obviously you received the script and you already had sort of some questions about the stereotypes that it was going to sort of portray, and then you read it, and then now you're a co-writer on it. And so how did you battle and sort of spin those plates? And because you want to be polite as well, you don't want to upset someone else's work, but at the same time you want to have that
you have to be honest, so yeah, it's an interesting one, because if the thing about stereotypes, it's that whole quote of they're not untrue, they're just incomplete. So sometimes it's having more depth and adding the layers to tell the full picture, not just like the surface. And it's to explore something like fully. But yeah, after My Brother the Devil, people see my name, and so there was a phase where, and it still happens, I guess, it's people come to me with, like, at one point there were 5 different projects came to me, all about women who go to join ISIS, like the young girls in Tower Hamlets, TV and film. I was approached, and like, if I count how many honor killing projects I've been approached about. So there are like fashionable topics, because they see My Brother Devil, they see who I am, I'm a woman, and my name, and then suddenly everybody comes to me with those. And so, like, you look at that and you just think, okay. And I felt a little bit, that's why I was a little bit negative and maybe misjudged Swimmers initially before I read the script, because of that history that I had of like only getting offered those things. And some of those projects have gone on to, other people have taken them on, done stuff with them. But for me, it's just always like, as a filmmaker, you have a responsibility for what you put out in the world. And it's even like, it's a political choice, what you make. Like, even as a director, how you design a scene is a political choice. The last shot of a movie and how the emotion you leave with an audience with when they walk out of the cinema is your choice. And so I think you just have to be mindful of, like, well, certainly for me, I would want to hope that, like, when I'm putting my head on the pillow at night, it's because I have like really thought through those choices, and I'm happy with like the output of what I put out into the world, because it is hard to make stuff. So yeah, I just kind of turn down the things where I feel like, and I've probably, well, I know I've had like some bad meetings where I've been honest and said what I didn't like about stuff, and probably those people don't like me and will never talk to me again or offer me another project. But then other people, like Swimmers, when I go in and go, okay, this is what I love about it, this is what I think is not working, this is what I think isn't good about it, then it's like you meet people who can collaborate with you or not, and who who trust, and then it becomes about trust.
And the honesty is the path into it, and some people want to hear it and are open to it and will collaborate and will make you a co-writer, and then the other lot will be like, well, she ain't coming in here again, and they'll go on to create something that people on this call will probably watch, and it won't ring true to them, and they'll see those stories and go, something isn't right, my gut's telling me something's not right. And often it's because someone did try and guide them and make the story more 360 and realized, and they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you find your tribe always, like anything in life, you know, you end up meeting the people you click with, and then, you know, you kind of, there are a lot of, our industry has a lot of different types of people and different types of projects, you know, and there are good people too, you know, trying to do really good things. So it's just about finding them and, you know.
Sticking to them.
Yeah.
We'll go for the next question, and it's going to be from Shireen Farkoy, and I think you're going to jump on, aren't you, Shireen?
I am. Hello, Sally.
Hello.
Hiya. I was just wondering, I can't remember whether you said you had an agent or not, but I was wondering, with turning work down, how does that go down with your agent, and has that changed over the years? What's the relationship like there with your integrity as a writer?
Yeah, good question. So the agent for me, I didn't have an agent until like a week or two before I was filming My Brother the Devil, when Gail, the producer, said, Sally, you need to sign your directing contract and you need to have somebody in your life. I had a lawyer before that, because when I had done the kind of producery stuff for My Brother the Devil, I had needed a lawyer to look at the paperwork and stuff. So there had been like a lawyer who I'd contacted directly and said, could you just do this for me? But I didn't have an agent, and I hadn't wanted to rush it because I know it's such an important relationship. So I was in a good position in that Gail kind of turned to me and said, well, there's this agent, I think you'd really like him, go and meet him and see. And I had met 2 agents prior to that, and it hadn't felt right. So they had wanted me to go with them, but it just didn't feel right. And so I thought, no, because if I do that, then I'm with someone I don't fully click with, and it stops me being with someone who maybe I do want to be with later, like after I've made my film. Maybe there'll be more opportunities. So I went and met him, and I really, really liked him, and I'm still with him. So I was very lucky in that regard. And that's my British agent, Matthew Bates at Sale Screen. And what I like about him is that he isn't someone who's going to push me into, you know, doing work that I don't feel good about doing. And he gets that I want to create stuff myself and generate stuff myself. But not only that, but he's very supportive like that. So he isn't ever going to be the person who's upset if I turn stuff down. He's actually the opposite. But after My Brother the Devil, the Americans come calling when you've made your first film, and the American agents are very different. So with them, it's like a real hustle. And a lot of people end up signing with American agents and managers because they're like separate out there. And they don't like it if you sign with an agency and then you turn down everything they offer you. And so that's why I chose not to sign with an American agent, and I don't have an American agent, because I knew that I had like a number of projects and I was doing my thing, and I didn't want to be constantly saying no. But I did sign with managers, and so there has been an element of me not finding stuff with them yet, but they've also understood that like I'm doing my thing, and they've kind of been around when I've wanted them to be and not when I'm not. So that's how it's worked for me. I think you just have to decide kind of, if you're an actor, for example, of course I'm one of those agents because you want to be working and auditioning and out there. But if you are someone who's self-generating, you don't always need that, because it's another relationship in your life to manage. Like I have a friend, he's much more successful filmmaker than me, and his American agents got really angry with him because he was with one of the big ones, because he kept getting sent all these scripts and he couldn't read them fast enough, and he kept saying no to everything because he has like taste basically. And because there's quantity in America but not always quality. So it's like, if you want that hustle of constantly having like 3 scripts a week to read, but like, do you have the energy to like constantly like do that and make those and pursue those and keep the relationship? I'd rather just be spending time like nurturing the thing that I'm passionate about and slowing the pace down at this stage. So I guess
I suppose
it really
you've
feels
aligned. Sorry, Shireen. No, go for it, mate.
I think it feels like, I'm sure that other MENA people agree, we are so underrepresented and our stories are so unheard. Like, particularly as a British Persian, I've seen being British Persian mentioned once in my whole life, and it was on I Hate Susie. We must just have this massive bank of stories that we're dying to get out there. So really a detective drama set in like, you know, Norfolk, that, yeah, I can see the benefit of it, but also like we're just bursting, aren't we?
Yeah, I think just like keep making stuff, like, you know, yeah, just keep making stuff, everyone, because yeah, it does need to get out there.
And I suppose what you're saying about aligning yourself with the right people and having the right people in your tribe who are respectful of you wanting to sort of say no to stuff and taking on the right stuff and putting your energy and your time in the things that really ring true and sing true to you, as opposed to going for the next commercial thing that's coming out of America or something that you sort of don't want to put your name to.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got another question. It's about the late Gail Griffiths, who produced My Brother the Devil, as you said. How did she get involved with the project? Was it very much your hustling that kind of got it there, or were you pointed towards her?
Good question. I'm trying to remember who gave me her email. So I just basically contacted everyone I knew in the industry saying, I've got to make my film this summer. I'm trying to meet producers. I've got some finance in place from this sales agent. And I had like a little blurb and like a synopsis. And I had made like a little short documentary with some of the boys that it was based on. So I had like a nice presentable package that was concise. And I just literally asked everybody I knew in the industry for the contacts of producers they knew and liked. And I can't actually remember who was the one who gave me Gail's email. But yeah, it was like a cold email from someone. So yeah.
And that's quite a common question, actually. I'm looking through the chat and people are asking sort of where do filmmakers start with finding producers and funding, and it's very much sounds like you just keep knocking, right? You keep knocking, the right door will open.
Go to film festivals, meet people, you know, go to events, go to Q&As, try to talk to people afterwards. There was a lot of that going on, you know, that old Woody Allen thing of just showing up. And you keep on showing up and you eventually get chatting to people.
Sweet. We're going to go for another question. Who's taking this one, Laura?
Rimas, she had a couple of questions, I think, but the second question particularly about balancing teaching, because Sally used to teach as well. Do you want to ask that question?
Yeah, hi Sally. So I know that you used to teach English literature at a girls' school, I believe. I've just quit teaching because I feel that it was taking a lot of time away from me wanting to do my own projects. Yeah. And so I'm just wondering, like, what advice would you give to me about my next steps? Because when I look at a lot of the schemes out there, they're always like, oh, up to 25 years old, here's an initiative, and I'm 28 and I'm under 30, and it's like, I think I'm too old for the schemes, or I don't know, I just feel a bit lost, but I just know that I'm ready, like, to commit. So I'm just wondering, like, what advice would you give to me about, like, what should my next steps be? Because I'm working on my own short documentaries and a couple of narratives, and also my first feature documentary, but I'm really lost. So I would just like really appreciate like what if you were in my position, which I feel like you have been, what would you do?
Yeah, I have been in a similar position to that. And so the teaching for me, I kind of volunteered teaching, which is I think what you were referring to, when I was in Yemen studying Arabic. And then the teaching for me, there was a stage when I was working in the documentaries after that and trying to get into fiction films, like before the film in Yemen, where my family is like, come on, you need a B plan, this is ridiculous, because I was working in a Harvester as a waitress basically. They were like, you need a plan B, and my family are teachers, so they were like, go and do a PGCE in like media studies. And I started one. I got onto the course, I started the first term, and it was so time consuming. I realized this isn't a plan B, this is gonna like consume me, this is like a full-on job, I can't do this. And so I quit because I thought, actually I don't want a plan B. I mean, if I have a plan B, I'll use it. And like, I just want the A plan, and that's what I have to be doing every day. So yeah, I would say absolutely, if that isn't what makes your soul sing, then quit. And it sounds like you've got the commitment, but you are just needing the reassurance that it's worth it. And it is. You've got to keep on like struggling. If you've got that feature doc, then keep working on it, keep going, and try to find the way to live that is going to give you enough money to survive, but not take up all your time, so that you have creative energy to put into the thing that you're doing. And it is that really tricky balancing act that you've got to do in the beginning for getting your stuff made, but just keep going. You know, it's great that you've already identified what it is you want to do, and that's half the battle.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And just off the back of that, I suppose it takes a lot of that confidence and that fire to do that. There was a question much further up, like, where do you find like a bank of sort of certainty and instinct that allows you to, that fuels those decisions? Like, it's so brave.
I'm a very frustrating person.
Amazon, like, where do you?
Because I'm very optimistic. I was working with someone at the BBC, and after a couple of years, he lost his shit with me one day, and he just went, "You're so optimistic. Can you just be pessimistic? Can you just tell me that, you know?" So I am quite an optimistic person. I know that. So no, you've only got one life. Like, why waste time? Like, do the thing you want to do. Like, I don't know. Probably comes through living in Cairo and, you know, seeing hardship and experiencing, you know, stuff in your personal life where you just think life is short. Like, you know, you do have a choice how you spend your day, your week, your year, your life. You know, life's short. Like, do the thing that, you know, you're passionate about. Don't live your life for other people.
Yeah, I think we all need to hear that every so often, don't we? We'll go to Alberto next. I think he'd like to ask the question himself. Hiya, mate. Do you want to pop your mic and your cam on?
Hi. Thank you so much. Sorry if I come across as a bit starstruck. I'm actually an Hosaini scholar, and I teach a work every year to my students at the University of Roehampton. So hey,
Mate.
Hi.
It's really embarrassing.
There you go. You're actually in my book, so I'm plugging it in. So my question is about the aesthetics of your films, because you may say that you feel like it's DIY. My Brother the Devil looks nothing like DIY. It's a beautiful film, very beautifully made, and I love the idea that you started the film from the end. That you started it off with the image of the older brother walking away from the younger brother, and that actually becomes a recurring motif in the film and becomes quite important to your vision as a director. Can you give us a bit of a teaser and tell us what striking images you have for your new film Swimmers? Is there anything that is jumping at you that is not necessarily just in the script, that is just visual?
Yes, there's a lot, and it's really interesting because that thing about the end is how I start everything. So, you know, I always, and it ties back to what I was saying earlier about that feeling of responsibility of what you put out in the world and where you leave the audience in that last beat. So for me, always the starting point for any film is just a feeling in my stomach and like an image of what I want that last shot of the movie to be and what I want the feeling and the emotion of the last scene of the movie to be. And that has been the case in, well, certainly the stuff that I've generated myself and like the films that I've done. And it's always been then me not knowing how I would get there in the writing, but knowing that that's where we end up has always been the way, because I'm not someone who's able to kind of like make a plan, like a 3-act structure and write a treatment and then go and write the scenes and plan it, because every time I've ever tried to do that, it falls apart. So I just kind of go on instinct. And it's a more long-winded way of working, perhaps, because you go down routes and roads that you then back out of, but it keeps it fresh for you and exciting, and it means that it's like the characters are alive and they're telling you where to go, left or right, or you discover things along that journey. So regarding Swimmers, you know, probably, you know, it's not rocket science why Working Title thought of me for the project The Swimmers, it being about 2 sisters, and I've done a movie about brothers. So obviously, you know, you as a filmmaker often get typecast in something. But saying that, there was in my mind when just this image that should be the last shot of the movie of the sisters in the sea, but not to do with their crossing, with it being an absolute moment of joy and elation and true sisterhood as they like splash each other in the waves. So you kind of have the sea motif, because the sea, which is kind of sweat and tears and like salt water, is like a big motif in the film for me. And so for me, like that image of them in the waves, knowing kind of the crossing and what happened to them and the relationship to water for Yusra and swimming and everything, was just where it needed to be. It just felt, it was an emotional thing that I just saw in my head when I read it and imagined the film. So I kind of very clearly have what that last scene is. You need the sun, the waves, joy, and joy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. I mean, I can't wait to see it. And thank you so much, Sally. We're pretty much out of time, and there are so many questions people wanted to ask, and we didn't get to them. So I am really sorry to everybody. A final one, if you could do a hangout, Sally, who would you do your hangout with?
Good question.
Go on. You've got it.
Sorry?
You've got it. I know you've got it.
Only one hangout? There's so many people I want to learn from and find out about. Do you know what? There is a filmmaker who is very, very special to me. And he's an American filmmaker in New York called Hal Hartley. And I watched his films as a teenager and became so obsessed with them. And this is before I even knew I wanted to do films, that I used to write out the dialogue for fun of his movies. And it was very strange, because when I was like 16, late night Channel 4, I turned on the TV and I had missed the beginning of the movie, but I just kind of like came in 10 minutes late. And I just remember sitting there and felt like my world had changed from his movie. It was The Unbelievable Truth. And then later when I was in Egypt, so that was when I was visiting my grandmother in Wales, and it was just like this film which stayed with me. Then when I was in Egypt, I just randomly happened across one of his films that was like randomly being shown on TV, and I didn't make the connection between the two. And I thought, wow, that film is like, I really need to like rewatch that. So then I hunted it down and rewatched it. Then I made the connection that he was the same filmmaker who made that film that had touched me all those years before. And so I then became like a huge Hal Hartley fanatic. And so I actually, when I was hustling with my brother the devil, wrote to him, and he's a very nice man, and he wrote back and just basically said, work well, be happy, and was very positive to me in like a little email, like keep going. Because I was wanting to know, you know, how does he do it? Because he's a very indie DIY person himself. And it has kind of kept his own thing going and controls his own work. And so he inspired me. And then when my brother the devil showed in New York, I sent him an email inviting him, and he came. And I can't tell you, like, he came to the screening. My heart was pounding when he walked in the door. I was just like starstruck. And then the whole screening, I sat there in the back of the cinema just watching him. And he kind of left quietly again. But yeah, no, I really admire him, and I've had a few emails with him over the years. And he's a very, very nice, generous man who's doing his thing. And so I think that kind of independent. So I would like to have a hangout with him. Again, maybe that DIY independent thing is something that I've been inspired from, you know, from him, like by what he does.
Sweet. Thank you, Sally. Thank you so much. Happy Friday to everybody. Thanks for your time. I'm gonna